And we're live. Excellent. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. I've got the lovely and inspiring Zuzana with me today, and we're going to be building a Laravel package.
Yeah.
Most people know Zuzana, and if you don't, I question what rock you've been hiding under. She's founded LaraBelles. She's very vocal on treating people equally in the community, and I applaud her for starting it, basically. Known her for a while and thought it'd be fun to do a stream together.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. You know, it's always nice to have someone alongside you when you're streaming, because then it's not like you're just talking to yourself.
Yeah, and to slow you down, I'm just going to say it right at the beginning. I'm going to be slowing you down. You speak too fast. You code too fast.
Yeah, it's the only thing I'm fast at. You know, most of the time I'm kind of going really slow in my wheelchair trying to get places. So when it comes to code, I'm a speed demon. Got to make up for it. Yeah. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop this link in the chat. We have a repo set up already. Feel free to use it. I think I can like show it. Hey, there we go. That's cool. Sorry, I'm still learning how to use StreamYard at the same time. So that is in the chat. Feel free to have a look. Basically, this is a repo I set up, which is using a template. So that template is a very slow screen. My internet's really fast, but StreamYard doesn't like me. So this is a sparsely packaged skeleton Laravel. And what it does, it gives you a really good starting point for building a Laravel application. It's got everything set up and configured in a way that's going to work well, and it's not going to slow you down and make you question, okay, so where do I put my service provider? Where do I put my config? How do I load that in? Where do I put my tests and my GitHub actions? It just got everything there for you. So I have literally just clicked on use this template, added it to my account, and that's it. I've got a test suite I'm going to pull across, which I've pre-written, which will allow us to do a bit more red-green refactoring. And I see my wife has joined in on the chat.
Hey, Amy.
Here to cause trouble again. At least she's one of my only supporters, isn't she? If you're interested in building Laravel packages and you want to spend a bit of money on it, Sparsy, funnily enough, have created a course because they've created absolutely everything else. Here is a course that they've got. I've got a copy of this course, and it's actually really good. It goes into detail on a lot of things when you're creating a... the kids are confused why I'm on the TV. Go to sleep. So yeah, it's got a lot of things in there. It goes into detail on how you can create a Laravel package, but we're not going to go into too much detail on that. What I'm going to do is we are going to focus on writing code, so I shouldn't have to change window too much. So the first thing I need to do, this is just pulled in. This is just a plain old repo pulled in. I'll make sure there's no changes. Obviously, first time I've used the repo, I need to set that globally at some point, don't I? Right. So first thing you do with this skeleton is ignoring all of that. I'll tell you what, I'll go to the preview. You can see the preview.
Yeah.
So the repo can be used to scaffold Laravel package. We know that much. We've used a template, and then we're just going to run this configure. Now, I'm not going to do that because I've already got a few things set up ready to go. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to clean this up in a way that I know I need it. So first
can I just check? So normally you wouldn't use a skeleton, would you? Normally you would use everything from scratch.
Yeah, usually I start from scratch. I thought for this one I'd use a skeleton because it allows me to kind of get to the point of the stream instead of how to build a package. We're building a package. Obviously, if people want to go more in depth on how to build packages, I'm more than happy to do another stream because I like building packages.
Really?
Slightly.
Really?
Yeah,
How many have you built? Just out of interest. Do you even know?
That is a good question. Let's check. Where are we? Let's go to Packagist. Search for anything by me.
So how
let's
many have you
go
got?
to me. So here's mine so far. I've got my Laravel company's house package, a simple PHP package for similar documentation for config and Laravel. Then I've got my Neo4j Cypher query builder, an Eloquent log driver because I needed it, a graph connection.
Look at how many downloads for that Eloquent driver, 760 for something that you just needed. Turns out it's not just you who needed it. It's amazing.
Well, I was doing a freelance contract, and the other person I was on the contract with, they were like, is there any way we could log, instead of using the file to log, could we stick it in a database table because I'll find it easier to use? So I just built one. I thought, well, if I built one, I'll open source it. And yeah, personally, I think I even put a warning in the repo. I was like, this probably shouldn't be used in production, or where did I do it? Querying logs. There's some helper methods. So where debug, all of that sort of stuff. No, I didn't. I didn't add any mention. I used to have a mention saying, please don't use this in production. But that might have stopped my downloads. I got my GTIN PHP, which is all about validating like barcode and serial codes. But all in all, if I log in, no, not now, packages, I think I've only got about 20 odd. I've got to paginate. That's how much I know. I got some really old ones.
Hold on, which one is the most popular? What was that? Scroll up a little bit. There was one with 2,000 people. No, that's 1,700. URI builder, and there was another one popular.
We're actually using that today.
Yeah, we are.
1,600,
1,900. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's just some things that I've built along the way. Oh, that's probably my most my most used one, the Laravel postcodes.
That's cool.
I think it's actually quite good.
Yeah, I think it's quite good.
I know my scroll lag is bad. I'm not going to be scrolling much today.
How many packages have I built? Not very many. Let's put it this way. I mean, I've done one with Tom on our stream. It took us like 6 hours, and I still need to go back and finish it off, like to add the README and everything, which will get done. It will eventually. And I've done, I think, one, or was it? I think I did one for my work. But yeah, packages are not my thing. Not yet, at least.
What namespace do you use on
LaraBelles. LaraBelles. I think LaraBelles PHP. LaraBelles PHP. Yeah, the top one.
That one.
I think so, because I can only see half of your screen. I mean, because the lag, it just freezes on the left side and only the right side kind of updates. I don't know why. Is it just me, or is everyone seeing the same thing? I think it's everyone.
No, I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's because I'm on Safari here, but I have to stream from Firefox. I've tried multiple different things, but we'll solve that problem and say, go away window for now, and we'll just focus on, let's focus on the code.
Yeah.
So the README. Let's open the README. Here we go. Here's a README.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody told me last stream. So I've got a README ready.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll just quickly run through it. So transporter, it's a futuristic way to send API requests in PHP. Basically just an OOP approach to handling API requests. Nice little install, nice and easy. And how you use it is... Oh, that's really driving me crazy. Right. I'll stop there. Right, okay. So basically you build a transporter, loading in the request you want to send, and then send it. Then once you've sent it, you have access to all the usual Illuminate HTTP client response methods. So body, JSON, collect. You can start changing fast for a moment. Oh yeah, I'm going to try not to switch screens today. So,
you said are you streaming from Firefox? Have you tried to run StreamYard on Chrome?
I don't even have Chrome.
Or maybe that's the problem. I mean,
that could be.
Not that you don't have a Chrome. I mean, good for you.
Yeah.
But I think I tried StreamYard on Firefox too, and there was an issue. I think it's meant that it's runs better on Chrome for some reason. I don't know why. Anyway, doesn't matter now.
I'm going to have a look in the background, and we're going to have a look at that.
Okay. While you're looking, can you look and talk, or are you can you multitask?
Well, to an extent.
Okay, I'll let you look at them. I was just going to ask, what is why using OOP approach to API requests? Why?
Because it seemed interesting. Like, I mean, we've swapped from a kind of a procedural approach in many things towards OOP because we've realized it's got many benefits. And going over API requests, because I work with a lot of APIs. Sorry, I read OOP on the chat and I was like, OOP, first thing came to my head. And because I work with a lot of APIs, I thought it'd be really nice if I could find a way to work with them in a more object-oriented approach. So bear with the lag a second and I'll get to the right part of the screen. Obviously, I've documented quite a bit. So this is how you would build a request to send. It's got some helpful traits already built into it. So anything to do with... Oh, don't do it to me. Right, okay, I'm going to try not to click on anything.
Don't scroll, don't click.
Yeah. Hands-free. I've actually downloaded Chrome in the background.
I think what you could try, because when I was on the stream with Tom, my browser actually crashed. So, but it didn't kick him out. So what you could try to close or open the stream from Chrome as well. And it should still keep me on, hopefully. Right, well, I don't want to tell you to do that, and then it's going to crash, and the whole stream will crash. So I don't know. Did I
search if there's any package? There's similar-ish packages, but they weren't the way that I wanted them to work. There was only one that was kind of close, but it wasn't quite close enough for me, which is why I wanted to build the package, basically. Also, the way they did it... Oh, go away, Google Chrome notifications everywhere now. No, I don't want to make it the default. Excellent. So now I can go to StreamYard on this screen.
Yeah.
Log in quickly. It's going to send me a 6-digit code on email, which I can get on my phone to make it quicker. Yes, I know I'm live on YouTube. I got an email telling me I was live on YouTube.
In case you forgot.
Just in case.
Yeah.
Right. Enter Studio. Right.
Are you going to be here twice?
Allow mic cam access. Allow. Yes, you're allowed to use my microphone and my camera.
Oh, he's gone. He's gone. Is he back? Oh, it's just me then. So anyway, how are you doing, everyone? Should have had something prepared, like
I'm
a small
back.
call. Are you back?
Right,
I
I'm
was just
back
saying, I'm just
already.
gonna
Yeah, I
do
did
some
everything in the
talk.
background. Right.
So let's
Okay.
see if it's
Oh,
any
Google
better.
Chrome wants to ask for permissions. Oh. I didn't think about Google. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to go and be back in 2 seconds. I'll be
Yeah, you have
quick.
to. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to talk about LaraBelles actually. Why not? If this is just for me now. So LaraBelles, I've created this community almost a year ago. We're going to have our first birthday in just over 2 months. And the reason I created LaraBelles is because there was no community for women. And back then, I'm talking about LaraBelles, Steve. Seriously.
Sorry. You carry on. You
I
carry
was
on.
just saying, what was I saying? Yeah, so when I looked for a community, there was none. And I came from other communities that were specifically for women. And it was just a nice place to be, like, I don't know, talk about our stuff. It was, I don't know, it was nice. So I was surprised there was no such community in Laravel world. And yeah, I decided to create one. And here we are, almost a year later, and we are still going strong. I'm still sending those newsletters. I'm still featuring LaraBelles, which is amazing because when you think about it, I mean, it's going to be live on the website soon, but we have, I don't know how many featured LaraBelles now, like 12, 14. I know it doesn't sound like much, but I remember when I started with this, and I generally didn't know any other woman. I think I knew about Sam Gates, and Jess Archer. So I knew about those two, but other than that, I don't know about any other women. And now, thanks to LaraBelles, there are so many other women out there, women, non-binary, and trans people. It's just, yeah. So I think it's great, and I'm hoping I can find even more people and keep it going, so I don't have to, start featuring people I've already featured, because obviously eventually at some point I think I'm going to run out of people to feature. But yeah, so it's been fun. Let's go back to packages. Scroll and type. Let's see if it's any better. This is
Oh my
much
God,
better.
this is incredible. I wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when you were talking about LaraBelles with me, and you were saying how you were thinking of doing it, you weren't sure, and when you did it, I was like, thank God somebody did it. It was about time, because it's hard if you go on like LaraChat or Laravel UK or any of the other communities, you get kind of ambushed by loads of guys, loads of guy programmers, and as a woman, that's got to be intimidating. It's got to be like, okay, do I really want to do it? Because you can't even have a LinkedIn profile sometimes without being harassed.
I mean, I've never had any negative experience, I have to say. And I went to like WordPress meetups, and I went to PHP meetups. So there was majority of men anyway. And honestly, I've never had any bad experience. But I think it was Abigail, I think Taylor's wife, who said, like, imagine if you go to a gym and it's as a man and it's full of women, it's going to feel weird, at least a little bit. And this is how it sometimes feels. It's nothing to do with the man. It's not that the men are off or making wrong comments. It's not that. It's just like, sticking out, like being, So I'm just trying to, with LaraBelles, just to get more women visible, publicly visible. And I know it's not for everyone, so it's not going to be like, oh, everyone's going to want to do talks and write blog posts and talk at conferences. It's not that, but I just want people to know that there's more of us, and just see what happens. I'm just going to go with the flow. Anyway, back to the package. Yeah.
Yes.
LinkedIn is just weird, because LinkedIn, you can have the occasional like a message that's worth replying, but most of messages on LinkedIn, it's either recruiters that don't care that you are not open to new opportunities, or just I don't know.
Yeah, it's horrible when you think about it, really, isn't it? Like, you can't even network in a professional environment without being harassed.
Yeah. But we are changing the world. We're doing something, It's better to do something little than just sit and complain. So we're doing something.
That is very true. Right, now my screen is working and there's no lag. Hey, Tom, thanks for joining me. So, as I said, here's a request. We've got anything to do with handling a URI at all, anything to do with handling the payload, the headers. We got forwarding requests. That's a very specific one. And then we've got the handling client setup. All of these are in traits to allow you to override them easily and cleanly. The only thing you need is to add a path, a base URL, and a method. And then to send a request, you can transport a request, passing in a request. Then you can say, okay, so I want to override the defaults. So I want to say, okay, so here's my payload. Here's some extra headers that I might want to add. And here's a path that I actually want to send this request to, which might differ from what you've set up here. Just a nice override there. And that was actually Tom who recommended that, funnily enough. Yeah. And then there's an alternative way where you can send it directly from the request itself. So you can say request with this additional information, send it.
Yeah.
That is the one that you said, Sam. That one, you said you should do it like that. So I have. I've done it like that just to make you happy. But here's the API underneath all of it, the plan for it. So each request will have a retry. It'll have retry timing, timeout, any sort of auth available. So does it require authentication? What auth strategy are you using? Basic, digest, token, or none, basically. And they're all coming back to LaraVelles HTTP facade method to add auth onto the request. Then auth credentials, which could be empty, could be array, or it could just be a string. Oh, I'm going to stop clicking on things. So if it's
at least it doesn't, freeze anymore. Yeah, it's good. You can click all you like.
I'm going back to Chrome, even though I said I never would do it again. So for token-based auth, you just return a string. If it's like basic or digest, you've got to return an array, and it's got to be your username followed by your password.
What is the difference between basic and digest?
Yeah, I actually don't know. I've not used digest before, if I'm completely honest. Yeah. Then you've got method, so you can set, is it a post, put, get, delete requests, any headers, the payload that's going to be going in. So it should always be an array. And if you're working with an API and you want to send like a post patch or put request, or anything that requires a payload, you kind of got to encapsulate inside a body. Part of the way the HTTP facade works when you're adding a payload, basically, I believe. I experimented. It was the best way I could find. So but what I do is inside that method on the trait is I would body array merge passed in payload with anything that you want as a default, and then just return the combined amount under body. Just nice, quick and easy.
Can I just say I found out what's the difference between digest and basic? So basic authentication uses non-encrypted base 64 encoding, whereas the digest authentication uses encrypted form by applying a hash function. So there you go.
That is a new one. I've not used it. No. So here we go. The URI. So this is your chance to build up the requests as you require it. Only thing you got to do is make sure it returns an instance of
this is your
package of mine. Yeah. Which gives you a really flexible approach to working with URIs and query parameters in general, basically. Then there's a path, any parameters, and then fragment, because sometimes you need a fragment which would look like that. Just that end part, what you'd call the hash on in JavaScript, or window location.hash, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And then obviously tests, test coverage, changelog, security, all the usual stuff. So that is a README. That is done. I do not need this configure skeleton. I do not want that. Bam. I have pre-built a license that I can just drop in. So I can come over to here. I can say license is done. Composer, I have pre-built most of the composer now as well. What I did, I added a few extra things that I'm going to be finding useful, I think. So let me just drop that in. And what I'll do, I'll walk you through it. So,
I think it's fair enough to say you have your own skeleton. I mean, you might not use the official ones, but you have your own kind of.
Yeah, I've kind of got my own approach, to be honest. Yeah. So each composer JSON, you've got your name, so the name of the package, the description of what the what it's going to be, any keywords that you want to attach to it. I typically don't add keywords. I don't find them useful. Then it's got a home page for Git repo, what license you're following, the authors. You'll have to send me your details, Zuzana, and I will add you in the little authors there. I've never had a package with more than just me on it, so I'm going to add you in there.
Wow. Okay.
The require, I will be requiring PHP 8 and upwards. Illuminate contracts, my URI package builder, and the sparsely Laravel package tools, which comes with a skeleton. And then for the dev requirements, we've got paratest, you need Guzzle, Nunu's collision, orchestra test bench for testing Laravel packages, PHP unit, which would sit underneath test bench, sparsely Ray, which I've actually got Ray, but probably won't need it for this. And then Psalm. I'm not going to be doing that. That is something that came with the skeleton, Tom. That wasn't me. So I'm going to remove Psalm because I'm not going to have time for static analysis right now. As much as I probably should, I will probably do that later at some point. Auto loading with PSR4 under a namespace and the location. I like to end it like that. Then autoload dev will be the exact same namespace as above, but with a prefix of tests. It's just basically how I like to organize my namespaces. Scripts, well, I don't need Psalm. Then we've got the test, which is going to be running the test bench command to test a package in parallel, which will make it so much faster. And then generating coverage, which you want to make sure that your xdebug is enabled. That's PHP monitor, by the way. It's really handy because it allows me to switch PHP version, add extensions, disable extensions, and restart services really quickly.
Do you always use VS Code, or is it just now?
Yeah, I used to use PHP Storm a lot, but the PHP IntelliSense in VS Code through the extension is actually really good. PHP Monitor, let me just grab, I'll try and find a link to that for you afterwards. About PHP Monitor. Leave a start on GitHub. Copy link. So that is, let me drop that in the chat. There you go. It is super handy on a Mac. You can switch PHP version really easily. So sort config, we're going to sort our packages. We are also going to say we want to optimize the autoloader. Then extra Laravel providers. This is where you'd also add like aliases if you wanted to add a facade, but I generally don't build facades. And that's just my package service provider. Minimum stability is development, but I would prefer stable. And that is the package.json. So all I'm going to do now is
composer.json.
Yes, compose. Sorry, I've been doing inertia all day, inertia, view, and tailwind. So I'm thinking in like the node world. Never add aliases to the composer.json. Well, that is not what the package skeleton said. So I'm not going to listen to you, Tom.
Why not, Tom?
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, Tom, tell us why. Why?
So that is now failing. Perfect. Just how I wanted it. So the first thing I typically do is let's the test bench. And I am going to replace that with the service provider name that I actually want to use. Providers are fine. Yeah, I generally don't build facades myself. Find it easier not to.
Yeah, but you said never add aliases. I mean, that sounded like something really bad will happen if you do, and then you just say providers are fine. It's like, what an anticlimax! Like, seriously.
Yeah, I was expecting more.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so I don't need any config. Get rid of that. I don't have anything to do with the database. I can get rid of that. I don't have any views or resources that I need to worry about at all, so I can get rid of that. Stop asking me that. GitHub issues, workflows. What I'm going to do, I'm going to say I'm not interested in that right now, and that I'm not that interested in because I like to style it my own way. Funding, that's something for later. PHP CS don't need. Is there anything that I also don't need? No, that's everything. That's the basic things set up. So what I'll do is I'll just say spring cleaning for now. Clear that away, nice and clean. SARM, definitely don't need that. PHP unit, config. So most people put like the vendor name there, but I like to put the package name because it makes more sense to me. And then obviously, if you've ever looked inside one of these, you can have multiple test suites. Then when you're doing coverage, you can have, okay, so only include the source directory, and you'll want to output the reports to here, and any logging that needs to go through JUnit output to there. Oh. So that is all of that. We can clean some of this up because we're not going to have it. I don't have docs in there. I'm not using PHP. Actually, well, I'll add the .idea back just in case anybody uses it on PHP Storm or similar. So I've got most of that set up now. Get attributes, always good to have it enabled. Editor config, really helpful, so you can have your defaults set. And now it's literally into here. So the first thing to do, let's get rid of that example test because I don't want a green test just because it came with a skeleton. So I can remove that. I definitely don't need that either. The command I won't need. So I can rename this.
I can see why you don't use a skeleton because you delete pretty much everything.
Yeah, so much deleting. I mean, you can run the command and get rid of most of this, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I'm going my usual approach, how I would usually do it. So transporter service provider. Let's get rid of that. Transporter service provider. And then we can say transporter. Ooh. So skeleton command can go. Get rid of that. We don't have a config file, migration, or views, but we will have a command a little bit later on. And as usual, I like to enable strict types when I'm working on a package.
Why?
I don't know, habit. There's no real reason other than I like to.
Okay.
So here we go. So this is why I like VS Code at the minute, because I can, okay, so package name. Okay, so I know I can kind of have a look and see what's going to be returned. I can see what arguments and what they're expecting. So it means that I can just start to PHP-8 it up really nicely. So I'll drop the has command for now, make it clean. So we've configured the package using the sparsely package service provider. Why did I use a sparsely package? Because it's quicker and easier, and I wanted to show
how to delete files.
How to delete files in VS Code. That was why I wanted to. Okay, so that's my service provider. Now for my tests. So Let's quickly set this up. We're just going to declare script types.
No, you should write a package that will include the script types in every file, or script or something. Just
setup. So I don't need any of that. I don't need to set up any specific environment. And then for the service provider, I just want to load in mine. And I can import that and remove those. So that is pretty much set up now. That will now, if I just compose a run test, no coverage, because I've actually got no tests. That's all. It's saying, you haven't written any tests. Why are you running me? So I've prepared a test suite. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it across so we can do some kind of red-green refactoring. So tests, we're going to make a transporter test. Within here, I can just go cough. Here it is. A big old test suite.
It's very impressive.
Anything else? Well, there's going to be a lot of failures right now, but that is kind of fine. I like to sort imports because I like them to be clean. I can save that, and now I just need to pull over some stubs, which I created ready for this as well. So bam, there and there too.
Did you rename the package from skeleton to Laravel transporter? I think. Did you or did you not do it? And was it in the service provider or
service provider? I believe, yeah. Oh
no, you didn't.
Wow. It's just called transporter, not Laravel transporter. So there, we've got that transporter test that is going to fail miserably. We don't even have the transporter class yet, so let's just run our test suite and see what happens. Lots of failures. Perfect. So there are 23 tests, made no assertions, but we made 23 errors. Perfect. So we've got a starting point. Stop deleting. No, I'm just going to select it all and delete it. So the first thing, let's create our transporter class. Copy the name and let's start. So as usual, declare strict types so that no type errors can go unnoticed, like type warnings. If you pass a int instead of a float, I believe it ignores it. But if you put strict types, it's like, no, you're not allowed to do that. Which I kind of like. I like to know that my type hinting is not going to waste. Right. So we have our transporter class, and we'll run that in the background. Still all failing.
Still 23.
That is good. That is exactly how I wanted it. So our first step with the transporter is to start looking at building it. So the first thing you want to do with the transporter is basically, I've done this before, but you might want to utilize some. I don't think I've got time to build a package and do static analysis on one stream. Usually I would do static analysis, but today probably not. So I've got a very handy little trait which I use anytime I'm kind of building an API type thing. What I'll do, I go create a new directory called concerns to follow the Laravel convention.
Sorry, I'm just, son.
No, it's fine. You carry on. And you might have seen me do this before or in one of my articles. But basically, I always add a has fake so that in here I can say use has fake. So what it allows me to do, I can say, instead of using the HTTP facade, I can do it straight off of the class that I'm working with, and it works exactly the same because all it's doing under the hood is proxying a fake call to the right method of the HTTP facade, and it's the exact same footprint, does exactly the same thing, but you're just adding the behavior onto here. And because it's not a trait in Laravel, I can't just pull it across. So we can now fake requests. That is always a good start for when you're building a package. So next, what we want to do is we want to look at building this. So the first thing we need is we're going to want to do it nicely. So if we went back to our README and looked at that preview quickly, we're doing a request and we're passing through this request.
Yeah.
So first thing we're going to need to do is build a nice function, public static. And what I'll do, drop that so you can see it properly. Function request. And that is going to return a new instance of itself. That's the first thing it's going to do. So that needs to accept a request in. And the request is going to follow a request contract,
yep,
which we can write shortly. Then all this is going to do is return a new version of itself, passing the request back through. So you can either new it up or you can use that static request method. It'll make no difference. You're welcome, buddy. That was a useful trait, that's for sure. Right, so I can go public function construct, and because I'm on PHP 8, I can set things by default on here, and I'm going to make this public. So this is a request contract, and here is the request. So to get rid of some of those red lines, let's make that contract. So under here, we'll create another new namespace, and we'll call this contracts, another Laravelism. And that's a request contract.php. They name things contracts and concerns. And
yeah, it's
when
interesting.
when I do Laravel stuff, I like to try to follow their convention, because people using it, it will follow how they'd usually work on problems, basically. So let's declare. I don't think you need to do this on interfaces, really, but I do it because I like to add it to every file. So it's not a concern, it is a contract. So we'll make a new interface called request contract. And within there, we are going to add everything that was in our README. So that is basically all of these. So we've got all the retry stuff, the auth credentials. And what I'll do, I'm just going to copy it from my other screen to make it quicker. Because you don't want to see me write every single thing out, because you'll be here all day. So we can import that class, which is mine. So this one is actually really useful. I built this a while ago. But what it allows you to do is you can build it from a string. You can add a scheme, host. You can manage all the different parts. And as you get down towards the bottom, right at the bottom, this is how we build it up from scratch. So two string, fragment, adding fragments, query parameters. Query parameters uses a parameter bag, which is another one of mine, which is basically just it's like a fake creating a lot of files. That's the idea of creating a package. It's basically like a fake little container that you just kind of put key values pairs into, and you just pull it out when you want to build a query string. So it just makes it a lot easier and a lot quicker. So here's everything that's going in there. I'll go through and add comments later on and do all of the usual stuff that I'd usually do. But for the sake of doing a live stream, we will skip some of those parts, but bear in mind, I would usually do some of this. So I've now got a way to build this. So can I run my tests? Not found. That is fine. Things not found. We've got failures. So let's go through these traits. first so that we can start getting some greens on our testing. So as you saw on here, if you come to this example here, so we've got handling the URI, handling the payload, and the headers, and all of those. We kind of want to do some of the setup for these requests. Like we've got the contract in place. We know we've got that contract. We just need to, so we don't have to write it out every single time we want to go through and create some of these. So we'll start from the bottom, handles client setup. So what we'll do, again, in a concern, we'll create another trait. And some people don't like traits, but I use them where they make sense. And when you're going to be like generating lots of requests, do you want to write the same methods out over and over again? Probably not. Stick it in a trait. It's kind of what they're there for, right? So now I can add the namespace, concerns. So handles client setup trait. So what this trait is basically going to do is we're going to do all of the retry methods, the retry timing, and any timeout sort of stuff. So the first thing is retry, because it needs to follow exactly the same as what this is going to follow, the API for the interface. So we know we're going to need that one. So we can follow that explicitly, and we can say, okay, so what do I want to set my default retry amount to? So just return 3.
Yeah.
Pretty standard. The next thing is going to be like the retry timing. Okay, so how do you want to use this? And thanks to Tom, I've started using the carbon interval. So I can say carbon interval. I want this to be milliseconds, and let's say what, 300, 400, 500, 300. And we want this as total milliseconds. Nice, clean, and easy. Keep that nicely in view there. So there's our retry timing. The next part of the interface is
the timeout.
The timeout. So what is a sensible timeout for an API request? It depends how critical it is, I suppose. You know, you can override this on any of the requests. So
what is the LaraBelles default timeout? Isn't it like 1 sec? No, that's too. What is the
Yeah, I'm not actually sure. I'll start writing it, because I know I'm going to want this to be in seconds. And I know this is going to be in total seconds. So thanks for the advice on that one, Tom. That's actually a really useful little one to use. So following the Laravel, the PHP 8 convention, I will do named arguments where possible.
I don't know. I mean, in the docs, when it says timeout, it said like the example is set to 3. So
I usually go for around 10.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if it's 10 as a sensible default is fine. If it's something that's a little bit more vital and you're going to wait for the response on, I probably wouldn't want to wait 10 seconds to get an API response. 3 seconds, maybe more sensible. So that is setting up the client. You know, I've got my retry timing, and my timeout. That is all in a nice handy trait now. So that error that we saw handles, okay, that one won't be solved yet. We'll worry about that later. So our next one is, if we come back up, let's say forward requests.
Yeah.
So this one's now working. We know that one's going to do what we want it to do. So now we can say we also want to, you know, forward requests. And this is thanks to Tom. This is the thing that Tom said that I should do. So it is what I did. He made a very valid point about developer experience and the friendliness of the packages API. And yeah, he's got a point. I try to make things as friendly as possible when I'm building packages, because you want it to feel easy to use. You don't want it to be annoyingly horrible to work with. So all we need on this one is because we're just forwarding requests, there is a Laravel one that does it, but it's built into the framework and it's got to be working in a specific way. So I do a nice public static function call static, and that takes in a name and a list of arguments, and that is basically going to return in the end a Laravel client response by the end of it. So what we'll do, because we're forwarding the request, we've got the name, and we've got arguments, so we know we're going to say, okay, looking back at this here, how we wanted to send it alternative ways, we know we're going to say, okay, we want to send with send.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that means I need to get my transporter, and I know I'm going to want to pass through a request.
Yeah.
So I want a new static instance of a class I'm working with, and from there I'm going to say, okay, what method do I want to call? And when you're calling with static, name is going to be the name of the method you're trying to call.
So name.
So I can say name.
Yeah.
Eventually, I will also say send. Ooh, sned. So I'll eventually send that request. That will complain because it's a trait, but I just ignore it. And I can say args. So what that's going to allow me to do, I'm going to be able to say request with this set of arguments, and it'll send.
Yep.
Basically it. Is that how he wanted it done? I believe that's how he wanted it. I'm not sure if he wanted to send, or do he wanted to tap that on afterwards? Request with send. I'm not sure. We'll test it. We'll see how that works. We might not need that part on it, in which case we just need to change that return response, basically. So that's forwarding requests. Next, we want to worry about having headers, basically. Your request needs to have headers. So if we come back down to not auth, towards headers. So basically, we're just going to be implementing that.
Mm-hmm.
So we can say, okay, so we've got headers. If I'm going too fast or you've got questions, anybody at all, throw them at me. Otherwise, I'm on autopilot and I'll talk you through my process. That's okay.
I mean, I'm quite impressed that you managed to talk and type and everything at the same time. That's impressive.
My wife would disagree because she'd tell you that I never shut up.
It's the typing part that's impressive.
Yeah, well, I'm used to pretending to listen while I type. Again, my wife would tell you. So we need to follow this, basically.
Yeah.
So we're going to have that in there. So we're passing through headers, but we're going to want to have that default amount. So we say, okay, we want to kind of merge two arrays. The one that's being passed in, and here are my defaults, basically. And mostly my defaults, because I'm working with an API, it's going to be accept headers. And I always want to accept application JSON.
Yeah.
So
any other default, any other default headers you would add to this array?
Yeah, and when you build your request itself, let's say you didn't want those default headers, just don't include that trait. Add the method yourself, and you can use it. It's nice and simple. It's kind of a composable approach was what I was aiming for. So it's clean, it's easy, it's not too complicated. And if you want to extend headers, then drop the trait, add the method yourself, and form them the way that you want them to. But if you don't want to go through that hassle, this will set some relatively sensible defaults. Was the idea.
Good idea.
Yeah, it's a payload. Payload is very much like headers. What I'll do, I'll create them class first. Trait, sorry. So we've got a payload.
Yeah. Isn't there in VS Code a way to create a PHP class with all the defaults already done? like
There's
opening the
probably an
PHP tab?
extension for it. I because most of the time I'm on autopilot when I'm writing code. I haven't felt the need to, because I like to format it in a certain way. I like to have declare strict types, the namespace. I like to kind of create it as I go, I suppose.
Okay.
So the payload is down here somewhere. So payload. This is this one, which has some specific instructions around using it. So this is where it should always be an array. So even if you don't want to pass anything, just pass it in an empty array. But it needs to be encapsulated in a body for it to work nicely. So what I'll do is we'll pretty much just return exactly what we had in there. Payload, your payload, if you want to do anything. So what we'll do, I'll just grab that. This is your basic. This is kind of what I'm saying you need. Okay, I can't copy from there, so I'll just have to type it. So we've got a body, and we're going to say array merge.
Yeah.
The payload is anything you want by default. And then we want to return an array, which is the body, like that. So basically, if we add anything on, like the with method, if we add payload, that will pass it through to this method. So you're building it up. So it's just a nice, clean way to provide your default. But again, like all of the others, if you don't want to do it this way, don't do it this way. You know, because it's a trait, you pull it in, drop the trait, compose it the way that you want it.
Yeah.
Right, that is payload done. The last one is the handles URI, which is kind of like the bigger one. And then we can go on to actually building the transporter itself, the important stuff. So again, declaring strict types, setting our namespace and concerns, get our trait, handles URI. So when we're handling URI, there's certain aspects that we know we're always going to want to handle. So we'll start from kind of like the bottom. So here's our URI here. So fragment is part of URI. So it's parameters, path, and URI. So 1, 2, 3, 4 methods need to go within here. So the fragment is basically just going to be, okay, by default, we'll return nothing because most of the time I don't need one.
Okay.
Parameters, again, very much like what we just did with the payload, we're just going to kind of do an array merge. But because we've got nothing saying we've got to encapsulate it in anything, when it comes to parameters, what we can do, we can just return the array merge of the parameters with any defaults that you want to put in there, basically. And if you override this, that would be how you do it. If you want to override it slightly differently, you can do. I did debate doing a like this params, and then you had to add you know, a params attribute onto your request, but it just felt a bit, you know, I'm forcing too much on the class, on the request class at that point. I don't really want people to have to do that. Path. Now, path is the one thing that you do have to have on there. Path is the next part. So this is where we're returning null or a string. Basically, we're just going to say, okay, so we're using PHP 8. So we can say, I think this worked in PHP 7, actually. If we pass in a path, return the path. Otherwise, return the one that's already set. So the idea there is, like we've got here, we've you're always going to have that because we're going to create a make command for this. So you're always going to have this set up. So all you need to do is say, okay, so, that could be posts, that could be something, whatever it is you need that path to be, log in, log out, register, that would be there. So if we're not overriding it past the default is what I'm saying there. And the last one, the URI. This is the beast of it, basically. This is where we're building up how we want your URI to be handled. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure the screen is uber focused on this bit. So let's pull in the class. So let's walk through how we're going to do this. So first thing, we need to get a URI. Now we know we've got a base URI on every single request. So okay, so let's use our URI package, and we want to build it from a string. So that URI is going to be base URI. We've at this point, we could just return the URI because that is then going to pass that argument. But we're not pulling in the path. We're not pulling in any parameters. We're not pulling in any other aspects of it. So what we want to do, we'll start with the path because that's the next one down, is, okay, so do we have a path? So if our path isn't empty, we want to get the URI and say add path, and we got auto completion already, so we know that we're getting hints about what methods are. So this is coming from there's a method, a nullable string, which will return the URI. That's great. I'm updating it as I go. So if it's not empty, add it is what we're doing there. And then the next step is parameters. So parameters are a little bit messier because I haven't added this to the URI package yet, but I am kind of planning on it. So if empty, this parameters, I'm not overriding at this point. I'm literally just requesting them because I don't need to override them. Then we can say, okay, so because I've only got the package, only got an add query param, or I could add from a string if I wanted to. I need to kind of loop over the ones that I've got registered on the request I'm building. So for each parameters as a key value, because I need both aspects of it. I need to see how you've named it so I can pass it through correctly. I can say URI, I can add a query directly, or I can add a query param. So if you add query, you're going to have to build it. So you want to add the query param because that will allow you to say, okay, so there's the key and the value is the value. And I've got that extra method, convert bool to string. Just so that in the URI, it doesn't send through a 1 instead of a true. So by default, I would probably turn that on. So convert bool to string, and we will just say true for this.
Shouldn't it be convert? Convert?
It is, but I think I did a typo. Yep, I've done a typo. Okay. So if anyone wants to PR that, feel free. You only catch these things when you're using named arguments, right? If you're not using named arguments, you wouldn't realize I've done a typo.
Yeah.
But at this point, all we've done is we've created the URI from the base URI that's going to be on the request.
Yeah.
We're then cycling over the path. Then we're getting to, if the path isn't empty, we want to make sure that we append this path into the URI. So tell the URI class, here's the path for the URI we're building.
Yeah.
And then if we have query parameters, let's loop over them and add them one at a time. Ideally, I would probably do this slightly differently, but my package is very limited. Okay. I'd like to just pass an array and allow the package to handle looping over them. Probably something I didn't think about at the time. You live and you learn. And then again, much like the path up here, we need to add the fragment as well. So we can say, okay, so grab that and we say fragment. So fragment, and then here we've got, again, the same method name, and we can just call this fragment. So if we've got a fragment, add it. If not, don't worry about it. We're not, we don't mind. And that's it. That is the building of the URI. That's kind of like the hardest part in any SDK is, okay, so how am I going to build this URI? Which is why I built this URI package, because I was frustrated of the millions of ways that I was trying to get around doing some of these things. And I found a way, I built a package and it worked. So where were we? That is all of those. That is then done. So I can go home now, right?
You are home.
Yeah. Oh yeah, damn it. I can go to bed. I've had my COVID jab today, so I'm very kind of like, oh, how am I going to feel tomorrow?
You're waiting for it to hit you, yeah.
I definitely am. Okay. So we've got our transporter class. We can build it. We can fake it. We've got our contract ready for building requests.
Yeah.
And we can forward calls through to the transporter to send it. We just need to be able to we've got all of the traits now, all of the concerns saying, okay, so this is how we'd like to build it and this is how we'll use it. So now let's look at, let's build our request. That's kind of like the next big thing, right? Isn't it? Is building and sending. So my first step is going to be, okay, so how are we going to build this request? What I'll do first, git add, git commit, and we will say, it is my repo, I'll whip it if I want to. There we go. Some people hate the work in progress commits, others like them. I use them when I can't think of what I want to name it.
Well, yeah, imagine when you come back to it like a few months later and you're like, what did I just do? So,
I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. So our first step is we want to build that request as we go, right? We want to say, okay, so let's make a request that we can then work with. So public function, we'll call it build request, make request. Any preferences, anyone?
Build sounds better to me.
It's a bit more descriptive. You're building the request as you go, which is going to give you like a pending request back, I believe. So I'm going to assume it will give me a pending request from there. So we'll build it as we go. So the first thing we need to do, okay, so let's start building our client. So for that, we'll say, HTTP. I swear I know APIs. We want the headers. So the first thing we want with the headers is, okay, so let's get the headers from the request. So let's say, okay, the request that we've passed in, because we know we've got this method available, give me the headers.
Yeah.
We're basically cycling through a few of these. So we're going to get the headers. Now we also want to basically handle the client setup, which is going to be, okay, adding the retry timing, and any sort of timeout methods that we need to do.
Yeah.
So now we can say, okay, so we want our retry to be set up, and times is, well, we've already set that up, so we can get the request again, and we can just set the retry.
Yeah.
And then we have, okay, so how long do we want it to sleep for? Again, request, not retry. And that is our retry timing.
Yeah.
Now that may fail because that is expecting an int, as is that. And if you have a look at these, retry returns an int, that returns a float. So at this point, because it's kind of important, I ensure that they are both integer values in case they are overridden in any way. Anything outside of my control, basically. And then I can just set the default timeout of seconds. And again, let's ensure that this is going to be passed as an integer. So we can get the request and we can get the timeout.
Yeah.
And that is our initial client. So down here, I assume that will resolve yes. So that at this point is a pending request.
Yeah.
It's not a request anymore because we started building it. It's that pending object pattern which Laravel likes. We've added headers. We won't worry about payload right now. We won't worry about the URI. We'll handle that in a bit. This part next is authentication. We're building up our default kind of client that we know we're going to need. We know we're going to have headers. We know we're going to have retry options, and we know we're going to have some sort of timeouts going on. And we know we need to see if we're going to handle auth. So this is where we need to say, okay, so the request that we've got, does it require auth? If it requires auth, we need to work on it. Otherwise, skip this, return the client. Yeah. And this is where we need to kind of say, okay, so what method are you using? I don't know whether I could use a PHP 8 match statement here. Would you think that would work, or would it need to be? So if I go to PHP 8 match, it's probably going to call it Stitcher. Here we go. Good old Brent. So here's your switch statement. I wouldn't do that personally because it just feels horrible. Match.
Oh, this is much clearer.
Yeah, it's really nice, but I don't know if it's going to give me what I need, if I can do multi-line sorts of things. One single line expression for, okay, so you can only do a single line expression. So it's going to be useless for me right now.
Yeah.
So basically I need to say, okay, so if we don't have auth, skip it. If we do need auth, we need to cycle over token, basic, and digest, basically. The three options other than null. Yeah. So if this request, because we passed that through, auth strategy, if it is token, then token auth. So we'll set up token auth now. So we know we've got the client and we know it's got the method for with token. So now we can say that the token is going to be this request auth credentials.
Yeah.
It's got an optional override for that. I haven't thought about how I could handle that yet. So it'll be one that I'd probably refactor in later on. Might be a nice way to do it. I mean, you could. Where's auth? No. Where is it? Where's my auth? Where's all of my auth gone?
Have you made any?
I thought I'd made it. Have I missed one? Let's go back to my README. I didn't realize I'd missed one.
I But it's not in there.
It's not in there, is it? Have I missed one? Have I missed one? I think I have. I've missed one. Let's make that quickly. We can recover. We can recover from this. So let's make a new one. So this is going to be called handles authentication. I'll have to update the README to say use that. And because I like to be organized, I will put that at the bottom. I like them to be height order. So handles authentication. So we can add the namespace of concerns. Yep, this is a trait that handles authentication, and it's only got what, 3 methods? 3 methods. So we're going to say, do we require authentication to start with?
Sorry, I have a child in here trying to get some sweets from under the desk.
No, that's fine. I've got children everywhere.
I'll get something and go.
I'm surprised they've not popped out.
He knows better than that.
But you're on a stream and you're not going to tell me off properly in front of strangers.
Well, you never know. Go before I tell you off in front of everyone, the whole internet. No, just take it and go.
Wait, is it streaming?
Yes, it's streaming and you're on the stream now.
So the auth strategy is either going to be a string or null. We're basically saying, okay, it's token, basic, digest, or nothing. So by default, we'll return null because we don't want a default auth strategy. Yeah. Next, we want to say auth credentials. And this is basically going to be either, I'm going to say, drop the string aspect. I'm going to say array or null. Now this will fail the contract. So auth credentials.
Yeah. Why
has that added a space in there? So strange. They're trying to make them prettier. I don't want that to be a string. I always want it to be an array. And I want the array to be in 2 parts. I'll update the README in a bit. So basically, this is going to say, okay, default, I return null. But what it allows me to do, it allows me to handle the bearer aspect a little bit better. So down here, so we've got credentials there. And I'm going to want them in a specific order. So I'm going to say, okay, so I'm going to have the token and I'm going to have the, what is that with token require type. So we're going to have token and type. We're just going to deconstruct it directly from that method, which will allow us to say token type. And we'll say type. If there is no type, we will just pass through bearer. Typo. So, are you following along? Does that make sense?
I just lost your. No, you keep talking. It's just my window has disappeared. I can hear you, so it's open somewhere. But where is it gone?
So, if we require authentication,
yeah,
we enter this block, and if the authentication strategy is token, we want to deconstruct the auth credentials.
Yeah.
So the first part will be the token, the second part should always be the type, and then we're going to add those credentials to our client by saying with token because we're on token auth. And if that is null, so let's say, I don't know if that'll fail if it deconstructs. We'll see. If it is null for any reason at all, just pass through bearer, basically, which we technically don't need to do, but I'm going to add that anyway, just because it's very clear what's going on at that point for me then. So that's token auth. Our next authentication is going to be basic authentication, which is going to be kind of the same.
Sorry, another child is coming.
No, it's fine. I've got loads of children too. I've got
Can't
5.
escape. Can't escape them.
I hate magic strings in the user API. What magic string? I'm not using magic strings. So we can say, so for this one, it's going to be username and password, because that is default in basic auth. And we'll say with basic auth, the arguments for that is username and password. So grab that, we'll change that to username.
Yeah.
And we will grab that, and we'll change that to password. So all we're doing is kind of the same as what we did up here. We're saying, okay, so extract it from there, comment before. Oh. Add token and so on as constant somewhere. I will probably do that in a bit later. I could. I want to make sure I get this sending API request, because I've already been on for like almost an hour and a half and I've not even sent an API request. I'm starting to itch. And the next one is going to be digest. I will accept a PR from you, Tom. I will accept a PR. So if we're doing digest auth, we want to say with digest auth, which is exactly the same, username and password, which is both a string. We can extract it the same way. It's exactly the same, but I'm only using it twice. So I'm not going to worry too much about moving that off to its own approach just yet. So that's all of that. I've done the authentication.
Yeah.
I've done the setting up of a client. I've done the headers. That is enough for building a request, I think. I don't think it needs to be much more than that. We're returning the pending request. So now we can move on to, actually sending that request. Actually, no, I want to do the with, because in that forwards calls, we're saying with there. That is like the with method. We kind of want to build that as well. Otherwise, I will forget. So let's move on to that. Let's do the with method. So let's close all of those down. Let's close some of that down. Let's collapse it. So far, we haven't got too much going on. So let's handle the with. So that will be a public function with. That is going to return itself to be sent, I believe. That's going to be the best thing, I think. So I'll just say return this. This is going to take arguments, as you can see where forward calls. We're passing through a list of arguments. So what we need it to be, we kind of need named arguments, really. So we're going to have an array for the payload. If you're using this, you're going to be passing a payload, basically. You're going to want to be passing something. Any optional headers that you might want to attach kind of on the fly for any specific reason. Let's say above you get a request, you send a request, you get an auth token back, and you next time you want to send a request, you've still got that variable available, you want to send it. So you can pass that through in headers. And then you can say, we may or may not want to do an override on the path, basically. So first step, let's add that payload. So we can say, okay, so these are all the override methods that I mentioned. So the payload, if we've actually added anything, because it's doing an array merge, it's not going to overwrite. It will just merge. It's okay to add that argument there. I just had a brain fart for a moment. I was like, wait a minute, if I pass through an array to the payload, I'm going to get that same array back. Is that going to kill anything? But because I'm doing an array merge, it will be fine. I was panicking over nothing. Next is headers. Actually, we could probably do the same with payload. So if it's not empty, if the payload isn't empty, let's add the payload.
Yeah.
Then if request to path with, stop trying to change how I'm doing it. So if the headers aren't empty, then we'll say this request headers, let's pass through the headers that we are attaching. And again, same with the path. If I don't know if empty works on null and strings perfectly, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Caution to the wind. If that is empty, then we will set the request path. We will override the path.
Should you use the empty method? Because I mean, that's
I technically could do if it's not null.
No, yeah.
I know empty.
Because headers and payload can be empty.
They can be empty.
Payload.
Yeah. Finds whether a variable is null. Checks whether a variable is empty. I don't know if there's much difference between if it's empty or null, if I'm really honest. So there's a with. That's handling this forward calls, which I'm now going to close because that's going to annoy me because it's caught. Yeah, go away. I can go away. Shh. We did not see that issue. And at last, we can now run our tests. Let's see what passes and what fails. Okay. Takes exactly 2 arguments. Must take exactly 2 arguments. Okay, so our call static is actual forward calls. I cannot pass variadic arguments there. That needs to be args, and then I can explode it outwards. That's fine. That's fine. I understood that, I think. Right. That's not complaining now.
Wow, that's a long one.
Lots of stack trace.
Yeah.
Lots of stack traces. So PHP unit is failing for something. It's failing. Lots of red, but I was expecting red. So I'll finish this last method. They're sending the request and we'll see if it all lines up. So this is going to return a response.
Yeah.
We want that to return a response now. So now we can kind of build a request at this point. So we can say that the request equals this build request. We've now got our request. And if you look at the request itself, it's got the get, it's got the put, patch, delete options, head, all of those. There's actually a send already on there. So you can actually do, don't need to build anything. Don't need to add anything there. Just need to send it. Yeah. I think, yeah. I can just get the request and send. So there's a send. So I know that the method is going to be on the request. I haven't overridden it at this point. I've ran out of time to override it. The URL is going to be, well, I know my request has got a URL on it, but that is giving me, I believe that gives me an instance of my URI. Yeah. URI. Bam. That gives me an instance of something else back. But I can cast that to a string really easily, and it will give me a string. My next is options. This is a next argument. And this is where I just kind of pass through the payload. So there's a payload there. So I've got the payload. I've run out of time to get it, basically. So if we come and look at that send, what you'll see as you go through it is if you want to send a form, it's the first part of it has got to be multi-part. If you want to send a basic request, the first part's got to be body. And then it does lots of stuff building it all up there, which I won't go into. So that's why I had to prefix the payload with body by default. So I've sent it, which means I can say that my response is that. I could, in theory, return that there and it's done. But we're not catching any failed responses at this point. We're not handling it internally. So if the response failed for any reason, we can say, we could probably just throw a new exception here. Or throw a runtime exception for now.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. The response has got a method on it called toException. I don't know what that returns exactly. Well, request exception. Yeah. I could, in theory, just throw that.
Yeah.
Because that's just going to return a request exception or null. So I can now drop that because I don't need it. Let me quickly sort those because my OCD will kill me. And now we can actually, that's it. I'm not doing pagination because that's payload isn't options. Does it override the payload and headers? I would expect it to merge them. No, it doesn't override them. It does merge them. So in the with, I believe, I'll pop this one up. I believe that is a default within send anyway, from what I've done with my investigations, is one of the default options is actually allowing it to send errors, populate response, no, tap, tap, twiddly, tap, tap. This option, so it's getting options there, options, more options, lots of options, getting lots and lots of options everywhere. I believe that is a default where it will do the HTTP errors by default. Not sure where it does it, but it does. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run my tests again. I'm getting more failures. Okay, so must be compatible. Okay, so this is the stubs that I've created. And that's fine. So now let's go through the stubs. So I've got some stubs here that I've pre-created. Got a basic request, a digest, token, a normal request, and then one that I know will fail. So we'll start with the failing. So this has already imported everything that it needs, other than use handles authentication. That is the one it was missing. So I'm setting the path to a URL I know won't work on that domain. That I don't need to worry about. That I don't need to worry about. I don't need to worry about any auth credentials, and it's going to be a GET request. That is now handled. This is like the minimum that you could possibly need. You need to add a method, the base URI, and a path. The rest is kind of handled for you. Next one, let's go for the basic. So basic, let's sort the imports. So I'm gonna keep these in here. I'm not gonna pull in the trait because I actually do need authentication. I want it to be basic and I need it to be an array. For some reason, it added spaces. So I've got my username there and my password there, and my method is going to be that. So all of that to do to make sure that I can authenticate is add 3 methods and not include the trait, which says, okay, so I definitely require authentication. I want to use a basic strategy, and here are my credentials in the order that they actually need to be passed through. basic request done. Digest request. Sort those imports, those sneaky imports. Again, we require authentication. It's going to be the digest strategy. And the auth credentials will be test of username, password, and the method is still going to be a get request. And then we've got our test request over here, which I believe, go away menu bar, sort the imports out, handles authentication. Again, this one will just work. It doesn't need any sort of authentication setup. Everything else is handled for it. We just need posts on that URL, and we want to get request. Nothing too tricky there. And then the last one is the token. We're not going to pull in the trait because we actually do need auth for token requests. So we definitely need that part there. And then we need to make sure this follows what it's meant to be. So here's our token. That'll be our API token and bearer, which is a type of token. So that could be token, it could be authorization, it could be whatever the API specifically says, because what it will convert it to is basically authorization, American spelling, bearer, followed by your token. That would be the HTTP header that it converts it to. And I'll keep that in there so people can actually see it. And then the method is going to be a get request because it's going to that one with basically pretending that it needs authenticating. So, moment of truth.
Mm-hmm.
Will it run? We have got some failures, which is fine. Failed to open stream, Laravel transporter build, JUnit. Okay, so it's failing. It's failing because it can't write a report, basically.
Mm.
That is strange. So I'll just add that manually. Excellent. We've got failures. So 3 failures and some errors. So now we can, now we know things are working, kind of. Error exception matches. Let's start from number 1. So it can access a timeout from the request. Undefined array key of 0. So my tests are brittle. So that will be transport a test line 95. What are we doing there? So we're saying, okay, so we are expecting this to maybe...
Should it be a float?
I'm pretty sure it should be a float. So this turns a float.
Okay.
Wrong language, I think. Okay, let's see what it's going to complain. What's complaining about? Handles client setup. Total seconds is going to return that. That's 10 seconds. So this is where we could possibly start Ray. I knew I'd need it at some point. So now I can say, okay, so let's just, before it fails, let's see what it is. And watch Ray. Come on, Ray. You can do it. Okay, Ray didn't want to work for me. What's that? I don't know what half of this does. I haven't used it. Here's Ray. He's probably going to say, what's Ray? It will catch any failed requests. Okay, so it's actually failing on that for some reason. So let me drop that. What request exception is that? Expect exception code, failing request. So why don't we just grab that at the top? Let's see if Ray will work if I do it that way. Compose a run test. Ray's not catching it. Okay, I'm going to run it through PHP unit standard. So we've got errors. Ray's still not picking it up. So what I'll do, I'll die and dump it, and I'll have a look at what's going on with Ray. Undefined key 0. Where am I even calling that? Handles client setup. There's no arrays going on there. Retry timing. That's a float. We want to convert it to an int. We're building a request. Nothing wrong there. We're not actually getting an array of anything. So let's clear the autoloader in case something's been cached.
Do you want to get rid of the comment on the screen for now because it's taking a lot of space?
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize it was still there.
Thank you.
Sorry. Right, okay. So it can fake a request. Carbon interval. Is that failing from carbon for some reason? It's failing through carbon. Okay. Why is that though? That is strange. First time I've seen that one. So what I will do is that for now. Great package, but it just doesn't seem to want to behave for me. Running tests. We have got 2 failures. So what we would do is not PHP unit. We'll go back to not test. Compose a run test. Let's go through this. Run them in parallel. So we have got 4 errors and 2 failures. So 2 failures. Where are we starting from? Start from the bottom. It can fetch the request payload. Failed asserting that false is true. So I think I know why some of this might be happening. So maybe we want to check. That's definitely an array. Empty doesn't seem to be working there. So maybe we need to do a assert equals empty. Assert equals, so we are expecting an empty array. Actual is that. See if that one still arrives. Debugging. So that one's now disappeared. That is now working. Cool. So we can now move to the next one. So it can create a new API request using the command. Okay, that's going to fail because I've not even started that bit yet. It can fetch the request payload. That assert empty. No, because it's never going to be empty. There's always going to be a body in it because I'm using the trait. I forgot about that. These things happen. So ignore that bottom one because we've not handled the command yet. Passing in the body request option as an array to send request is not supported. Please use the form params. Ooh, okay. So it's complaining basically about me using that trait, the way that I'm using that trait. So what I'll do, I will go back to look at that trait, which is the has payload, and it's complaining about this.
Mm-hmm.
So if I just return that, I'm assuming everything should pass. Or most things should pass.
Yeah, we're down to 1 error and 1 failure now.
Down to 1 error. That is fine. I can live with 1 error right now. There was 1 error. Clean up my dine dump. I did think about using pest, but pest and test bench don't work quite the same together. So I had a few issues when I was playing around, getting this, seeing how this would work. The other thing, I hate doing things like that. So I would say response, and I say HTTP foundation response, HTTP not found, which is a 404. This is what I like to do, these. So there's a static there, a constant there. I like to reference to them instead of doing static, like adding in 404 exactly.
Why?
Just because it makes it a lot more obvious what it is or what it's meant to be, and it teaches people, and maybe someone more junior than yourself, when they're going through your code, I'm like, okay, so we're expecting an exception. Okay, so it's saying that this is going to be not found. That is a 404. The message is going to be that. So a 404 is a not found. If I follow it that way, then I'm going to start to understand like HTTP status codes a bit more. Is the idea behind it. So let me run that again. 1 failure, only 1 failure. So for now, I am going to say, not worried about forward calls, constants over magic numbers. I will fix that one in a bit, I promise. So if I comment that out, I have got a, I'm green. Yay. I'm good to go. I've got tests that are passing. I'll step through the tests in a moment. But first, let's create the stub command. Because that is the one thing that we definitely need. So I will close others. And in our commands, we need a transporter command. Oh. But what I need to do is I need to register that command. Has command, command class name is that. That is now imported. So declare some strict types because I like them. We can start the namespace as transporter commands, and it is a transporter command. Now we don't want to extend the usual command because it's a generator. Generator command. We want to extend that one.
Okay.
So this will, if I hover over this, it's going to say, okay, so does not implement get stub. Basically, that's the main thing it needs. But all commands need a signature. So public signature is going to be, we're going to call this single quotes, like make API request, basically. And then we're going to pass through the name. That is an argument that you need. You need to say, okay, make this. Public description. Ugh, what am I doing? My typing's just gone off the chain all of a sudden.
Late now.
Yeah, it's getting late. I've had a long day. So create a new API request to use with transporter. We need to notify it that it is a class, I believe, last time I used it. And then we need to get the stub. So protected function get stub. Oh, no, it has. Yeah, it's probably getting a little bit late over there in Finland, isn't it? So you have a good night, and definitely catch you soon.
Bye.
Cheers, buddy. Catch you later. So we want to return a stub. I don't know if there's a nicer way to do this, so I'm just going to do it messily. We're going to go from root directory to stubs, and we're going to call it API request.stub. And we want to set a default namespace. So we can say protected function get default namespace, which is a string, I assume. Yeah. Then we want to say, okay, so we've got the root namespace, but we kind of want to add on, that's going to be app. And then we're going to say, okay, so it's part of HTTP, and it's an API request. That is how I've done that. So basically what we're saying there is when we're generating this stub, here's the stub. The root namespace by default that we want to use is app HTTP API requests.
Yeah.
So in the Laravel project, it will sit outside of like your controllers and your API, your usual requests. It'll be back a level and kind of, it's still within that HTTP layer, as it were. So there's that. There's a command. We need the stub. That is the important thing. So if we just create a new folder here called stubs, we want a new stub. And we want our stub to look very similar to what we had in our README, basically. So let me drop that. So basically, we want it to look very similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
So if I drop that in first, the first thing you need, well, you're going to need that opening tag there. I'm going to add declare strict types to try and force people to follow my rule. And this will be injected with certain arguments. And the first one is dummy namespace. Yeah, dummy namespace. And then it's going to, there's our class. That is kind of like everything in there. That everything you're going to need. You have authentication, client setup, forward request, headers, payload, URI. Then you've got everything kind of pre-set up, ready for you.
Yeah.
Only thing you need then is to grab all of the
import all the traits, no?
Import all of the traits, which you can't actually do because this is a stub. So I'm just going to copy them from another screen like that.
Yeah.
But we also need to pull that in, I believe. Oh no, we've got that there. Request contract.
And then the next thing, authentication. Pull in the authentication one. Handles authentication. No, not in the.
Ooh, okay. Handles authentication is also going to come in there. And then the other thing that gets replaced with a class name here. So that's injected as dummy class, basically. And what that will do, that will create the file correctly and basically allow you to say PHP Artisan, make API requests, test requests, get users requests, whatever that might be. And it will generate this file for you and you can just start using it. That is the idea. So that's a command, stub, service provider it's been registered in. So now, basically, make sure that the file exists first. Make sure we've got our stub before we run our test suite, because it catches me out. Then we're going to run the command with an argument and assert that the exit code, I'm going to add some more named arguments. make sure that's that. So Artisan takes a command and parameters, but I'm just going to run it through like this. Make it nice and easy. There we go. Nice and clean, isn't it? I'll drop these down a line so that I can see things. This one you won't see straight away. So basically, does our stub exist? Yeah, cool. We're not going to fail. So call the command so that we get an exit code of 0. And because I've used Orchestra before, when you run an Artisan command, you actually get a Laravel application, and you'll see app HTTP API requests. Test request is what I've asked it to generate. I'm not adding any extra namespaces, so it should be in its default location, and it should be there. That is all I'm checking with that test. So before I do that, let's go down to vendor, Orchestra, test bench core, Laravel, app, HTTP. There's no API in there right now. So if I run my test suite now, transporter command does not exist. Where's that coming from? It should be being registered already. No, it's transporter command doesn't exist in the containers. The container's not liking it, so that must mean I didn't import it correctly. Transporter command, cool. So now if I come back down, if we watch here, hopefully this will now pass. Almost. It can create a new API. Okay, so why is it failing? Failing early, like I like them to in tests. So basically that's failing because it was going too far back in a directory. So I scroll that down. Now we're failing on line 405. That apparently doesn't exist. Test bench core, Laravel, app, HTTP, API, requests, test requests.php. That should be passing because this is all form. This is basically what is now generated, which allows us to start working with it. But for some reason, tell you what I'll do. Can I copy path? What I'll do, delete that. Let's just do this. So this will now allow us to go to the point where we care about it. So from vendor, this part. Grab all of that, replace it, and let's make sure we're in the right directory. So where we currently are is inside tests. Again, I think we've gone back too far. So now if we watch down here, hopefully.
Yay.
23 tests, 38 assertions. We have now got a request. We can start working with them. And what I would do to show that it actually does send requests is I'm faking some requests, I'm building up a request and faking it, basically. I don't really need to fake it because I'm not actually sending it there. So I should be able to drop that bit. Let's, again, run the test, make sure it doesn't fail at any point. That is cool. So that's not needed. Sending a request there, faking. We're failing requests. It can send a request. So here, to show that it does actually work, let's just rerun that.
Ooh.
This is an API output. So I'm not fake. I don't fake all of them. I fake most, but I make sure that I can actually send one request, at least one request, to make sure that things work properly. So it's failing because I've just died and dumped this out from the URI. But if we go back and have a look, we're actually just getting this transporter, which is on the setup. And we're just doing the test request, which is this URI followed by posts. So now, Ray's started working. Damn it. Okay, so if I just go there, basically, I'm just calling this.
Yeah.
And that worked. And all I had to do was say, build it like this and say send. So that is a Laravel package in 2 hours.
Yeah, I don't think it can be done any faster. Even with a skeleton. No. Even with a skeleton.
Even with a skeleton, that would be quite difficult. So what I'm going to do, git add, git commit. Zuzana, before I go, could you in the private chat send me your details to add to the composer file? Thank you. Whip. Because reasons.
What do you need from me? What do you need from me?
So I need role name, email, homepage. If you want to add it, basically.
Yeah.
I think homepage. It can be whatever you want within there. It'll basically just add you to the package, and then I can get your GitHub username and just add you as a contributor as well in the README.
I just sent it to you.
Hey, so we will grab that, and because I had a contributor, I have Zuzana.
Try to say my surname. Come on, I dare you.
Kunckova?
No, try again.
Oh, wait, I've got Google Translate somewhere. That would help. I use it so much.
Okay, I'll try it. I've never tried.
Let's test it on my phone. Let me.
Hold on. Not gmail.com. Hold on, the email is wrong.
Yeah, I was about to say contact@gmail definitely isn't
That's
you.
not gonna work. No.
And we will detect it in the right language. Oh, wait, volume is off. Not useful.
Kunckova.
Ooh, that voice is a bit strange, isn't it?
Kunckova.
Kunckova.
Kunckova, yeah, well done. I mean,
Hey,
voice
thanks,
strange,
Google.
but pronunciation was good.
That's not bad, is it? Okay, right. Let's carry on adding you. Yes, I've got everything. Yeah, right. Okay, so you can go first, ladies first, and all that.
Oh, thank you.
I am a gentleman after all. And copy the link address, add you in there. Could you just drop your GitHub name in that chat for me as well? And I can add you to the README at the bottom where we do contributors.
Let me just check. I know the right one. Hold on. I think it's that. Yeah, that's the right one.
Perfect. I had to check like a couple of times when I got the image for the YouTube video.
Yeah.
I was like, double check that name, double check that name.
Yeah, I know.
So like you are now in there, security policy is there, contributing. I don't actually keep an active change log, but I probably should at some point. So what I'd need to do is, this is 2021. What is the date?
27th.
27th. So that is May is 5 and 27. And we'll call this version 1.0.1.0 for.
Is it Laravel transporter or is it just transporter?
It's just transporter, really, isn't it? Yeah. Initial release of the package. Yeah, that's about it. And then obviously chronological changes will go within there. Test bench is set up. PHP unit, all of that is set up. Change log, all of that. GitHub, issues, workflows, contributing, funding, security. There's nothing in specific in there. Please email me. Spell my email right.
Well, I was just thinking, what is your email?
Instead of using the issue tracker, and I may as well add my. Can you add more than one in here?
No idea. No, Tom
I
will
will
know,
definitely
probably.
look that up. You probably can. I'll have a look, see if I can. Because that'd be really cool if you could. Tom might know.
He will definitely know, I'm sure.
Tom, you know everything to do with GitHub. Tom,
oh, come on.
Tom. Right. While we're waiting for that, I will. Have I got more to add? Yeah. So let's just add that. Git commit.
Can you tell who's watching? I know you can see the number of people watching, but can you tell who is watching too?
No, and that's not accurate either.
Oh, Tom's here. Tom, can you add more than one? Yeah. What was it in the GitHub?
So now we have everything here. So it's not on packages yet. It's not been downloaded. Code style, I'm just going to remove that. So in the README up the top, basically, there are these badges.
Yeah.
Laravel transporter, tests, code style.
It's asking the question. It was, can you have more than one? Was it not in the GitHub?
In the funding on GitHub.
In the funding on GitHub, can you have more than one person? Does it make sense?
Yeah, packages. Downloads. That's correct. That's correct because that's GitHub. And that's correct because that's GitHub. Cool. Right. Yes, you can add multiple. So you can just do standard. I assume you can just do. I need your GitHub handle. Funding as a YAML object. I assume so, but I didn't want to assume at the same time, if you know what I mean. I guess I can do that. Let's see if that shows up, because that should show up. There's me.
He says it should be an array. Did you make it as an array?
Yeah, it will still be a YAML array. It's just a different approach to it. There we go.
There you go.
Hey, we've done it. We've figured out how to do it.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. You can go back to making dinner. What are you having,
now I can say, I said I would make sure that the initial release is done in time by the time I finish the stream. Not auto-updated. That will fix itself within a couple of minutes, which means that I can come to the releases. I can start a new release. And that's it. just an initial release. Never seen that notation. Yeah, basically it's how I do Docker. When I'm doing Docker, if you're doing like an array in Docker, that's how I typically do it. You can like drop it inside the braces, but you can also list it out.
Yeah.
So there's the initial release. That is now up online. There is a version available. It's auto updated.
Is your email correct there? Just Steve
MC. Yes, that is correct. Yes.
Cool. Wow.
Package live from 0 to package in 2 hours.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it's getting faster. Mine and Tom was like, what, 4 hours? This is 2 hours. Next time we do it, it's going to be.
I did a lot. I did quite a bit beforehand in trying to understand how I would do it.
Yeah.
I just like building packages, and now I've got another one I need to support. But you know, now I can quite easily work with third-party APIs. Like I need to in work soon anyway. I'm doing a huge integration, so now I can start to build these requests. They'll just work. I technically I don't think you need to send. Technically, I don't know whether the tests covered that. So what I'll do, I'll just go to the tests quickly, the transporter test. I know it's near the bottom because it was one of those things I added later on. It can forward calls directly from the request. No, you don't actually need to add send. So I need to update the README. Look for request with, and you don't actually need to send it. So you can just say request with, and it will go.
Yeah.
Just think it needs send on there, though. I think it kind of does.
It's clear. So is it going to work without it? It is going to work without it.
Yeah, it'll work without it. Yeah, but if you do with, you'll get an instance of a transporter back. So I think that's what you'd want to do, just in case you want to chain extra on. So this should now, you know, fail tests. Where is it? Yeah, what? Compose a run test. This should now fail.
No, it didn't.
Okay, no, because I was updating something else. I was updating the docs, not the test. Okay, so request with. That should fail. Because there won't be that now fails. And that is coming from, there's no send directly on there, so we need to come up to the concerns forwards requests. We're not going to get a response back, we're going to get a transporter back because we're just going to run the with, basically. So now that should pass. Yeah. So now I can do well, not really fixing, updating API to force forward calls to send back a transporter. There we go. Right, so that will now do that. I can draft a new release quite quickly, say 0.1, 0.2.0. We can say forcing the request with to return a transporter. Publish that one. So that is now done. That is all up online. That will work exactly as it should do. Say in the docs, you can get a transporter, pass the request, you can send it, and then you can work with absolutely everything coming back from the response. You can build them. One thing we didn't add in the README was the Artisan command.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that the Sparsely Laravel package skeleton, did it have anything about the commands? Config usage. No. Cool. So I can just make up my own thing there. So I won't need to publish a new release because it's just doc updates. Installation, usage, and before usage, I will say generating requests. Use the Artisan make command. So we can say PHP Artisan make API request, name of your request.
Yeah.
This will by default publish to app HTTP API requests. There. Cool.
Cool.
I always add too many quotes. It's getting late as well. There we go.
Yeah.
Right,
Cool.
That should all be done now. You can just go ahead and do that. I love how I've added that. Bam.
Yeah.
Bam. That's so cool. It's live.
Yeah. Well done.
Right. Well, any questions? As usual, you can find me on Twitter. I'm glad I've managed to solve that issue. Now I don't have to worry about OBS and I can just use this. But yeah, any questions, hit me up on Twitter at JustSteveKing. I'll pop this in the chat. This is the repo. Feel free to have a play with it, submit PRs, do stuff, have fun.
Yeah.
My actions should be passing. It's still all green, just like we like them. So I am going to end the stream now and go spend some time with my wife. So see you later.
See ya. Bye.